Now also Cheney's father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, the former Republican vice president, following the warning we heard from his daughter that it's not enough just to not vote for Donald Trump. He will take the next step and vote for Kamala Harris.
Yes, the Democrat Party's vaunted endorsement, Dick Cheney. They got the Darth Vader endorsement. They've been calling him Satan for 40 years. Now they're thrilled to have his endorsement. It's the Democrat Party. Isn't they got you buy like the Dick Cheney Darth Vader. He's got the lightsaber and the helmet on, and Luke, I'll bomb your country, and it's Dick Cheney, and they couldn't be more thrilled. First, Vladimir Putin endorses Kamala Harris, then Dick Cheney, and the Democrats couldn't be happier. That means the news media, too. It's good to be a Democrat. Dick Cheney, for the first time in his life, is getting a tongue bath from the news media. Ugh. Don't spend too much time thinking about that. I'll just move on. They're hoping that Satan will endorse them. Well, Satan's already endorsed them. Come on. Satan sends them a check every few months. That's right. Vlad the Impaler Putin and now Richard B. Cheney. Isn't that amazing? Endorsing Kamala Harris. It's a crazy time out there, isn't it? And our news media, they're the most reliable. Something or other. It's unfortunate that they're not a reliable, honest arbiter of truth and fiction, but we'll get into some of that today. The big headlines today, and this is the talking point. Kamala Harris was exposed to the light of day for just a few seconds, and reporters, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, had the opportunity to shout questions at her because she doesn't sit down for interviews or hold press conferences because it's the Soviet stinking Union in Democrat Party land, and they own, most of our political establishment. So that's the problem there. But the fake reporters, they had an opportunity to shout a couple of questions at her, and the first question was, Trump says he's going to put election workers in prison. That's he's going to put election workers. It's pretty amazing stuff. And you got to look out because the news media is on a tear here. They got the big debate coming up tomorrow night. And so it's time to start lowering expectations. It's well past time. Lower expectations. Remarkable stuff. Because Kamala must win. She's got to win. And if she doesn't win, then it's the end of democracy, the end of civilization, all this stuff. And the reporters, the fake reporters, they had an opportunity to yell questions. And the first question they yelled is, Trump says he's going to put election workers in jail. So that's the question, because Trump wants to jail election workers. I love the Soviet lexicon, workers. Everybody's a member of the workers. Madam Vice President, they call her Madam Vice President. I'm not a madam. I'm a concierge. That's, it's a producer's 1968 reference there. Trump wants to jail election workers, Madam Vice President. Do you have a reaction? And the Washington Post headline today, Trump pledges, he made a pledge, he made a pledge to jail opponents. That's the headline in the Washington Post. Trump pledges to jail opponents. Well, wait a minute. Aren't his opponents pledging to jail him? Isn't that what's actually happening here? This reminds me of the old Soviet playbook, the Russian playbook. You accuse your opponent, they call us their enemies, because Hamas is not their enemy, Putin's not their enemy, China's not their enemy, Kim Jong-un is not their enemy. Their next-door neighbors are their enemies. People that have American flags in their front yards are their enemies. American flag bumper stickers confuse the heck out of them. So the headline of the Washington Post, Trump pledges to jail opponents, comma, baselessly, that's the old without evidence thing, suggests election will be stolen from him. Baselessly, he believes that he has a basis of some kind, but that's rooted in an election that took place several years ago. And CNN's headline, Trump warms up for debate by threatening to jail election officials. This is the news media. They're on the job. They kind of work for the Democrat Party, don't you think? And Trump threatens prosecution of 2024 election officials if he wins presidency. That's another CNN headline. And now, Michael, did Donald Trump threaten to jail his opponents, as the Washington Post headline screams? Did he warm up for debate by threatening to jail election officials? Or did he say that he's concerned about people tampering with our election, like the intelligence community did 4 years ago with that corrupt letter by 51 filthy, corrupt, commie pinko lefties who signed that letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, when in fact if you're looking for Russian disinformation, it's in that letter signed by 51 who tampered with our election, our own intelligence community tampering in our own elections. Don't they know we pay them to tamper in third world elections? Oh, wait a minute. Now that we're a third world country, I guess they feel they have the green light to tamper in the elections here. Isn't that amazing? NBC fake news. Trump threatens lawyers, donors, and election officials with prison for, quote, unscrupulous behavior, end quote. Well, the unscrupulous behavior would have to violate the law, and then I think we can all agree that people that break the law should be held accountable for the laws that they break, unless they're Hunter Biden or Joe Biden or James Biden or any member of the Biden family with millions and millions, nay, tens of millions flowing in from overseas, from Ukraine and where is it? Tajikistan and Russia and China. Just pouring into the Biden family coffers. And all of how many were there? Like 130 suspicious activity reports at the Treasury Department about Biden family financial transactions. That's no problem, though, because the New York Times, I think maybe they wet their beak. They got a piece of the pie, something like that. Either that or they're dating some members. When I say dating, I think you know what I mean. Members of the Biden family. Isn't that amazing? So these are the headlines. This Monday morning, Trump and his allies filed dozens of unsuccessful cases after the 2020 election in an attempt to overturn the results. Well, let's say that that's true just for a moment. That would be what the Democrats have done in every presidential election that they've lost since the year 2000 and 2004, where Terry McAwful, the DNC chair, still claims that both of those elections were stolen from the Democrats by the Republicans. He should probably be in prison, don't you think? What do you think? He's unscrupulous behavior. Probably throw him in prison. So we got that going on, and I want to update you on that because, hey, what did President Trump actually say to lead to all of these filthy headlines? I think these headlines mean the end of democracy. It's this news report is the end of democracy. Remarkable stuff. And, of course, you may recall, because Friday was a long time ago now, judge delays Trump sentencing in hush money case until November. It's a hush money case. It's a non-disclosure agreement. Every network and every newspaper has entered into dozens, scores, maybe hundreds of non-disclosure agreements, their own employees, former employees, being groped and sexually abused at work and a variety of other reasons. But never mind that, because this is the one non-disclosure agreement that is a big issue. It's like the one riot that's a big issue. January 6th, big issue. Hundreds and hundreds of Democrat Party riots where you burn the church of the presidents and injure 160 to 180 federal officers outside the White House, force the evacuation of the president. Non-story. Congressman Steve Scalise is shot on a baseball field by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer in yet another suicide attack by yet another Democrat fanatic armed and out there to kill. That's a one-day story. No big deal. It's good to be a Democrat. Filthy, corrupt news media. I'm telling you. You'd think that they were having sex with each other. Oh, wait, they are. They are having, never mind that. Trump-Vance ticket has done a combined 39 interviews between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. They've done 39 interviews between the two of them since last month, compared to only 6 for Harris and Walz. And that's generous because their interviews were really just walking by and there's an airplane in the background with the engines revving up. And she answered one question with one word, which is what happened over the weekend, and I've got that for you. Also, Elton John, Rocket Man. You know Rocket Man? It is, this is a pretty funny story, actually. Variety magazine, a left-wing front group, obviously. Elton John, see, because President Trump calls Kim Jong-un the North Korean communist dictator, who's not too much farther to the left than Bernie Sanders or even Kamala Harris, for that matter. But Elton John says, and President Trump calls him Rocket Man or Little Rocket Man, Kim Jong-un. And the headline in Variety, Elton John says Donald Trump calling Kim Jong-un, quote, Little Rocket Man, end quote, was brilliant. Brilliant. You know how British people use the word brilliant differently than Americans. And he's an English fella, isn't he? He's an English fella. That Trump calling Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man. Now, I don't think Elton John owns the words Rocket Man, much less Little Rocket Man, but never mind that. Was brilliant, but urges people to vote for a calmer, safer America. A calmer, safer America. And he said, Fox News headline, Elton John speaks out on Trump's Rocket Man nickname for Kim Jong-un, quote, hilarious, end quote. Elton John says that it's hilarious. He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's great that Trump calls Kim Jong-un Rocket Man. The news media asks him about it as though he owns the words Rocket Man. But never mind that. And then Elton John, who's obviously a left-wing, billionaire, he says people should vote for a calmer, safer America. I remember, let's see, the calmer, safer America means we have Venezuelan gangs dragging your grandmother into lampposts and fire hydrants while they're stealing their purses from the stolen Vespas and scooters, because the Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. That's the calmer and safer America. And calmer and safer, vote for calmer and safer. I remember when there was no war in the Middle East and Iran wasn't being funded by us so they could fund Hezbollah and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas and the Houthi rebels to wage war simultaneously against Israel. 3 more Israelis murdered over the weekend by another Arab who just wants to live in peace and murder people every chance, murder the Jews every chance he gets. Speaking of which, on Thursday, the Democrats are planning on staging Murder the Jews rallies on campuses across America. Thursday of this week, it's From the River to the Sea rally. That's the theme music of the Democrat Party today. From the river to the sea, Palestine will soon be free. And then, honestly, I think we should send all our LGBTQ people over to cater lunch for Hamas on a rooftop somewhere. What do you think, on a rooftop? Well, start on a rooftop. They'll end up down on the pavement. But that's another thing, yeah. So he thinks Rocket Man is hilarious, but we should vote for a calmer, safer America. With the skyrocketing murder rate and the illegal aliens and the gangs and the terror watch list, people flooding into the country, tens of thousands of communist Chinese flooding, and a calmer, safer America. The home invasions, the gang members with the rifles and the pistols ripping down apartment doors in Aurora, Colorado, and the home invasions outside of Detroit and the luxurious suburbs of Detroit. And there are beautiful, luxurious suburbs of Detroit, and their home invasions are out of control. And in New York City and in Chicago, where they can't afford the number of illegal aliens that they have, and on and on and on. So also, new twist in Trump assassination plot as it's revealed Iran targeted multiple politicians with money given to them by Joe Biden and by Barack Obama. And politicians for revenge on Qasem Soleimani's death. That's the Daily Mail is reporting that, but not the Washington Post or the New York Times. And we have a header today, Kamala and Tampon Tim, just a couple of nicknames for the Democrats running for the presidency. They want more gang members dragging more grandmothers into street lights and lampposts and fire hydrants from stolen scooters, because that's the calmer and safer America that Elton John is talking about. And how about Penzies? Have you seen this, Penzies? Kamala Harris went to a spice shop over the weekend hate-filled radical extremist Penzies. They have two of these Penzi stores close to Washington, D.C., and they hate Republicans. I think they're like Nazis, these people at Penzies. They're like Hitler, but with spices. I think Hitler had a sensitive stomach. Probably wouldn't like all these spices. But Penzies. And Kamala went to this hate place to preach unity and say, we need to get past all this. And then you scratch the surface on the place she said it. No sense of irony, these filthy, rotten people, I'm telling you. Got an update on Fox News and James Murdoch, the CEO at Fox. Turns out he's not everything that you might think. And on and on with the Democrats. Tomorrow night's the big debate, so we got a lot to talk about there. NFL player arrested going to his big football game in Miami, Florida yesterday. That's something. How much vacation did Joe Biden take while president, since now his presidency is in the past tense? The Communist Chinese, Iran, and other Democrat Party favorites. Coming up, we're at 888-630-9625. Bum, 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 bum. All right, Dick Cheney is suddenly a hero of the Democrat Party. What a world this is. Were it not for double standards, these commie pinkos. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to John, calling from Kensington, Maryland. John, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, John.
I think Dick Cheney is angling to get a show on MSNBC, and he wants to do a show with Mika.
What would it be called?
The
Dick and Mika Show. It's Dick and Mika. Dick and Mika together again. I want to do the graphic for the show, too, with Dick and Mika, because MSDNC, you got Mika, you got Dick, and there you have it. It's Dick and Mika, the Dick and Mika Show. I think you're onto something here, John.
Just an idea.
Just an idea. Well, I got to tell you, MSNBC, if they haven't heard it already, now they've heard it. And they got, because Liz Cheney, she jumped in and supported Kamala, announced her support for Kamala Harris. And then she recruited Dick Cheney. But don't they despise Dick Cheney? Isn't Dick Cheney Satan? I just did a quick look this morning, and headlines like Christian Bale thanks Satan for his Dick Cheney portrayal. He thanks Satan. And they've labeled him as Satan for years. Now they're thanking him, and they want to get in a jacuzzi with him. I am telling you, the Democrat Party is not what it used to be, not by a long shot. And there are people fleeing the Democrat Party in never before seen numbers. And then you got Dick Cheney going over to the most left-wing Democrat presidential candidate in the history of the world. This is a really bizarre time to be an American and to be paying attention, to be watching what's going on. Now, how can you suddenly support Dick Cheney when you're a Democrat? He is. Now, we were just talking about how he's Satan, right? The Democrats, they made him out to be Satan because they hate everybody. And the more pro-American you are, the more they hate you. They burn the American flag. They burn the Israeli flag as they represent freedom and liberty and a sea of totalitarianism. They are Fort Apache on the edge of Indian territory, and the Democrat Party wants to wipe out Fort Apache because it's just who they are. They destroy, they kill, they loot, they plunder. You may remember Christian Bale, who's a perfectly fine actor. I've got to say, he's in a lot of fun stuff, too. He was receiving an award, a Golden Globe Award, for playing the role of Dick Cheney. He played the role of Dick Cheney. He doesn't look a lot like Dick Cheney. In fact, you could be hard-pressed to find an actor that looks less like Dick Cheney. But in 2019, in his acceptance speech after winning the Golden Globe Award For Best Actor, Christian Bale scorched Richard B. Cheney by giving unexpected shout out for what he said was his inspiration in portraying the powerful and uncharismatic former vice president. That's the lead sentence in the Washington Post article from January 7th of 2019. And Christian Bale, in accepting the award, got a standing ovation for saying this.
I will be cornering the market on charisma-free. What do you think? Mitch McConnell next? That could be good, couldn't it? Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
Now Dick Cheney is, and everybody loved it, and the news media covered it, and they're like, oh, he thanked Satan because he's playing. And then they aborted another 1 million black babies and, shot 10,000 black people across America. But never mind that, and opened our borders and waved gangs in by the millions, and supported Iran, which is waging war against Israel. And the Democrats are backing yet another anti-Israel wave across our campuses from coast to coast this coming Thursday. Also, did you see they arrested, I want to get to this a little bit later, but arrested another guy, a Muslim man who was planning on carrying out a massacre of Jews on October 7th, on the one-year anniversary of the massacre of Jews, because, he knows he's got the full support of Democrats. I think if he gets a New York jury, he'll be found not guilty on 34 felony counts. What do you think? Seems very likely. But now, since I mentioned it, Alan Dershowitz is leaving the Democratic Party. Alan Dershowitz is leaving the Democrat, the Harvard law professor emeritus, a lifelong Democrat Party activist and Democrat Party lover. And Alan Dershowitz is now out. He is clapping out, tapping out. Alan Dershowitz leaves Democrat Party, cites DNC, quote, I was disgusted, end quote. Alan Dershowitz is also Jewish. And since the Democrat Party has turned into the Gestapo, maybe most Jews should follow suit. Dershowitz cited the recent Democratic National Convention that was held in Chicago last month as the final straw. The final straw. Speaking of flip-flops, that Kamala Harris had vowed 4 or 5 years ago to ban plastic straws nationwide because, and that was as we said on my Newsmax show on Friday night, that was the straw that broke the Kamala's back. The straw broke. And but now she's flip-flopped even on that. Well, no, I'm not going to ban straws. No, I'm not going to ban fracking. I'm not going to ban. She couldn't be a bigger hypocrite if the goal were to become a bigger hypocrite. So prominent attorney and Harvard law professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz announced his departure from the Democrat Party, citing several anti-Jewish lawmakers that make up the ranks of the party, like the Squad, and it's like the Hanafi Muslim Squad. They've got, here. It's just amazing. So Alan Dershowitz says he's leaving because Democratic National Convention, which Vice President Kamala Harris became the party's nominee after bypassing the democratic process and all that. And so now Alan Dershowitz goes, and people are fleeing the Democrat Party like it's on fire, like it's a gas chamber, and somebody left the door open. People are fleeing because the Democrats are not democratic at all. Speaking with radio host Zev Brenner on Talkline with Zev Brenner, Alan Dershowitz cited the Democratic National Convention, which he said gave legitimacy to anti-Israel speakers and anti-Israel protesters outside the gathering. It was the most anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist convention I've experienced. I was disgusted at the Democratic National Convention, absolutely disgusted, said Alan Dershowitz. I am no longer a Democrat. I am an independent. He doesn't want to go crazy and say he's a Republican or anything like that. He added, saying that he wouldn't reveal for whom he would be voting for president until probably after November 1st. I want to see how they deal with Iran. I want to encourage the current administration to support Israel I don't think that's going to happen. They hate the Jews, Dersh. I like to call him Dersh. I always called him Dersh because that's short for Dershowitz.
Party. I am no longer a Democrat. I am an independent. I'll decide who to vote for at the last minute based on totality of the circumstances. I want to see how they deal with Iran. I want to see how they deal if Iran attacks the United States. I want to encourage the current administration to support Israel.
Good for Dersh. I always knew he was a smart guy. You know, he's got a house on Martha's Vineyard, of course, a multi-million-dollar house that he's had for years because it's all, it's a circle fest and a hot tub. You can be a professor. What do they pay him, like $900,000 to be a professor? Something like that. Don't really teach very much, but never mind that. He probably makes more than that as professor. He's done very well in life. He's one of the top professionals in his field anywhere in the United States of America. That used to count for something. And his Martha's Vineyard home, you might have seen him on the television doing live shots from his Martha's Vineyard home. And he has been banished from all social circles on Martha's Vineyard because he's not radical left-wing enough for the Democrat Party. He's no longer invited to all the soirees and the summer gatherings. And when Obama's having a party at his, what is that, a $15 million oceanfront mansion, not worried at all about the rising ocean there, is he? No, he's not. Except whatever you do, don't paddleboard near his house, especially if you're his chef who just learned how to swim, but not well enough. Don't paddleboard near there at all. Remarkable stuff. So he has fled. Tulsi Gabbard has fled the Democrat Party. The list is growing and growing and growing because people, even Democrats, are looking at the Democrat Party and saying, what has happened to the Democrat Party? And they're fleeing and fleeing and fleeing all over the place. Yes, sir.
Today, I say goodbye. Adios. I've had enough. I am now another near lifelong Democrat who is joining the growing number of people, including key groups like Latinos, who are leaving the Democratic Party.
Latinx. I think she meant to say Latinx like Joe Biden, because they're not just an ethnic group, they're also a bathroom tissue.
Latinx.
That there he is. That is the woman, Gloria Romero. She was the Democrat Senate leader in the California State Senate. She was a lifelong Democrat, became a Democrat state senator in California, became the Democrat leader of the Democrat Senate majority in the Democrat state Senate in Democrat California. And last week, she announced she's fleeing like it's a gas chamber and somebody left the door open. Remarkable stuff. And Alan Dershowitz, she's Latina, which is a gendered term referring to a Latin American who is female, Latino, and Latina. And the Democrats say Latinx, because they're trying to erase gender from everything, including the Romance languages, Spanish and Italian, where the terms are gendered, right? Señor and señorita and all that good stuff. But they just want to have Latinx because they're all mental. They're all mental. Speaking of which, a great friend and a great friend of the show had an interesting experience over the weekend that was communicated to us this morning. And it turns out Saturday in Washington, D.C., that's night before last, day before yesterday, they had what they call the Human Rights Campaign. The Human Rights Campaign had their gala. Is that a gala or a gala? It's the National Dinner and Equity and Equality Convention weekend. And they had their big dinner. It was so big because it's a fundraiser. It was at the D.C. Convention Center. You can land airplanes in the D.C. Convention Center. It's a gigantic place. And the Human Rights, which is a gay group, it's an LGBTQ advocacy group. You know its symbol. It's a dark blue background with a yellow equal sign on it, right? And they had their big national dinner at the giant D.C. Convention Center on Saturday night. And there were millions of people there. Not millions, but there were thousands and thousands of people there. And it's pretty funny because they were showing up to do their thing. And who was there but Admiral Rachel Levine of the Department of Health and Human Services, who dresses like a lady admiral and is a deputy secretary or assistant secretary at the Department of Health and Human Services, Rachel Levine. And who else was there? Were there any Bud Light advertisers there? Who is it? They're celebrity transgender people. So, who is the other celebrity? Which one? Miss Maryland. Oh yeah, the Miss Maryland in the Miss Whatever contest, who is a transgender person. That is to say, a man with a penis and testicles, who was made Miss Maryland, even though he's not Miss at all. He's Mer. That's like Ms. But it's Mer. That Mister. He's a man. And Miss Maryland, even though he's a man, was there. But that's because it's the Human Rights Campaign LGBTQ thing. And so you had the Rachel Levine, who's a man, who played football in high school with Joe Biden's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Thoroughly Modern Millie. And Thoroughly Modern Millie in high school played football with Rachel Levine. And they played Duck, Duck, Goose after every game. They didn't pray or anything, but a little game of Duck, Duck, Goose. And it's kind of fast. So the Human Rights Campaign, LGBTQ Convention Center, Gala, big fundraiser thing. Rachel Levine. And who was the keynote speaker, you might want to? I know you're thinking, you're scratching your head, saying, but Chris, who was the keynote speaker on Saturday night? And the keynote speaker was none other than Minnesota Governor and Kamala Harris running mate, Tim Walz, keynote speaker at the Human Rights Campaign, where Rachel Levine and Miss Maryland were there. And Tim Walz got up there, and he went on to the cheering crowd about Project 2025, which is a paper to come out of a subset of the Heritage Foundation, a paper with which Donald Trump had nothing to do and has rejected and not endorsed. But the Democrats are trying to pretend, first of all, that Project 2025, this research paper, saying here's what the Republicans should do based on what we think they should do at the Heritage Foundation. And it's just about, conservative things that you would do. But Trump has nothing to do with it and rejected. The Democrats are trying to demonize. There's nothing wrong with Project 2025. You should take a look at what they talk about. But then, Tim Walz was there to a cheering crowd. Did he play Duck, Duck, Goose with the gang? I don't know for sure. But then, if you looked outside the convention center, there's a mob outside with bullhorns. They are the pro-Palestinian mob with Palestinian flags and bullhorns and stuff. And there's a giant transgender guy dressed like a lady in a long dress with a wig and long hair, kind of looked more or less like the mass shooter in Georgia last week with the long bleached blonde hair, right? Not that there are a lot of transgender people committing mass murders or anything. Oh, but wait, there are. So the mad Palestinian mob is outside with a bullhorn, and they got the big transgender guy with the long dress and the wig. And if he went to the Gaza, they'd hang him from something, and the crowd would cheer and throw bottles at him and stuff. But he's out there supporting Hamas and anti-Semitism. So the mob outside the convention center with the bullhorn, transgender people, and it's the LGBTQ pro-Palestinian, and they were condemning the Human Rights Campaign because they take funding from Northrop Grumman, the arms manufacturer and aircraft manufacturer, and it's a wonderful corporation. And the HRC, Human Rights Campaign, has done the shakedown of arms contractors to get money because they threaten them with consequences. So Northrop Grumman gives them a pile of money so that they can be in the good graces of the left-wing Democrat Party front group, the Human Rights Campaign. And the pro-Palestinian mob outside with bullhorns condemning them for accepting funding. What a screwy country this is. And when I say screwy, that is a triple entendre, honestly. What a wackadoodle-doo this country is, and this town in particular. So that was Saturday night in Washington, D.C. because Democrats, and it's all Democrats, every stinking filthy one of them, Democrat at this gathering, because they wouldn't invite any Republican. Oh, speaking of which, ready to hear about the spices store that Kamala went to and what she ironically said while she was there.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Also, the Democrats, many of them men dressed as ladies at the Human Rights Campaign Saturday night gala at the Convention Center in Washington. And the bullhorn, and they love the Palestinians, and they hate the Jews, and they hate American industry and ingenuity. And they had, some of them had the red bloody hands, the bloody red hands, which is a symbol of the 2000 lynching in Ramallah of Israelis, where these Hamas savages murdered Israelis, drenched themselves in the blood of the people they had murdered, and came out and held their bloody hands up to the crowd as the crowd cheered. And the Democrats show up with bloody red hands to show that they would lynch and kill Jews too, just like the Nazis and Hamas. Now, here's what it sounded like at the Convention Center on Saturday night.
Queers love Palestine! Queers love Palestine! HRC love the war machine!
Queers love Palestine. See, queers love Palestine. HRC, Human Rights Campaign, loves the war machine. They had to say Palestine to make it rhyme with war machine because, you know, they're very musical people.
We are here, we are clear! We are here, we are clear! Zionists are welcome here! Zionists are welcome here! We are here, we are clear! We are here, we are clear! War prophets here!
And they always curse. They have potty mouth. And what is that? We are here, we are queer. Zionists not welcome here, but the number of syllables didn't fit, so they just kind of bluffed their way through.